We're kicking this off. What's new in data live here up on the 46th floor of Salesforce Tower. We got a great panel here, some industry thought leaders, operators. My name is John Coute. I'm head of products here at Stream. I'm going to give the panel a chance to introduce themselves. Today was a total game changer in terms of announcements at Google Cloud Next. Obviously, generative AI is a big topic here, and the intersection of data, software development, bringing business value. So there's no better panel here. We have Sanjeev Mohan, we have Radhima Khan, and we have Bruno Aziza, and I'll give all the panelists a chance to introduce themselves. So we'll just go down the line. Sanjeev, do you want to get it started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to this amazing event. My name is Sanjeev. I was with Gartner for a few years where I covered the data and analytics space. 2 years ago this month, I decided to leave and start my own company called Sanchmo. And now I do cutting edge research. So Gartner is an amazing company. I learned a lot, but they have large customers who don't want to be on the bleeding edge, and I don't blame them. And I wanted to be on the bleeding edge because I'm a sucker for pain. And then generative AI happened. So lo and behold, so that's what I do now. So I do my own research. I have my Medium blog. I was telling Radhima, I'm a small influencer because she's an influencer. She works with influencers. So I have my own podcast channel. So great to be here.
Awesome. My name is Radhima Ahuja Khan, and I'm currently VP of Business Development at Dapper Labs. I was previously a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, venture capital firm based here in Silicon Valley. And before that, I was an investor for the Hewlett Foundation of Hewlett Packard, focused primarily on investing in corporate and structured credit. I managed a $4 billion portfolio there, primarily focused on hedge funds, private equity, and venture. And I'm thrilled to be here today. We're doing a lot with AI in the blockchain space, and I'm excited to share it with you.
I'm Bruno Aziza. I'm a partner at a firm called Capital G, which is Alphabet's independent fund. So very much in the investment business. Prior to this, I just started this new job. Prior to this, I was running outbound product management for Google data analytics portfolio. So we have some customers here. Adrian, I don't know where Adrian is from Mercado Libre, is absolutely amazing leader that if you want to learn anything about data mesh and data products and so forth, you really should talk to customers. So I'm excited to be here because we've done, I think, a couple podcasts together.
Yep.
With both of you, actually.
Both of us. Yeah, me and Sanjeev both said yes, yeah.
Yours is called That It Depends.
It depends. Yeah.
And yours, of course, is What's New in Data. And so I'm always excited to learn from the community. So I hope you have questions for us, and hopefully we can make this entertaining.
Absolutely. So I'll dive right into it. So a lot of great announcements today at Google Cloud Next during the keynote. I wanted the panel to give their take on it. So, what were some of the most impactful announcements today?
So it's all about AI, all about generative AI. I think the entire industry has done this hard pivot to generative AI. You cannot have a conversation and not mention generative AI. You'll be considered a dinosaur. And in fact, my last session was with Thomas Kurian, and I was saying, is there a danger that we may overshadow the problems that we still haven't fixed with data? Because all we want to talk about is generative AI. I want to go to Looker and ask a natural language query, and guess what? It'll go query BigQuery table, and then it'll produce me a Google slide. That's amazing. But what if I have 5 different versions of that table, and I have a data quality problem? End users know this problem has to be fixed. So, but anyway, that is a very unpopular belief. So I don't want to go and sound like, but what really excites me about Google Cloud especially is that Google is probably the only company that if you look at the entire stack, they play in every layer. For example, if you look at the infrastructure, they have their own CPUs and TPU, for example. AWS also has, but Microsoft does not. And as you go up, then the next layer is Vertex AI. So they have this whole machine learning framework piece. Then you go up the stack, they have their own foundation models, which are pretty good and actually getting better. So the whole PaLM and now MedPaLM and SecPaLM. So as you go up the stack, then at the data, they've got BigQuery, BigQuery Studio, BigQuery ML, Alloy DB AI was announced. And then you go up to the application layer, they've got literally 4 products with 1 billion users every single day. So they've been doing large language models in Gmail, search for many years before they became fashionable. Then you go further up, you got devices. How many companies have devices? They've got Android devices. In fact, now what we saw today in Gmail, where you can say, write me my email, you can do it on an Android phone because the Android phone is running a foundation model. So if you look at Chromebooks, like they're basically, and then all the way up to the partnerships that they have. So I think seeing that at every level, Google has a set of new announcements is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think also there's a panel around blockchain and AI, and I think for my field, that's particularly exciting on the indexing side, where there's mass amounts of data, and blockchain historically has taken a lot of energy, and with AI, we're able to sort of minimize that in a way. So I'll give a little bit of context on Dapper, because I think a lot of people, the blockchain space is quite vague, but Dapper Labs is essentially a blockchain company. We have a chain called Flow. You can find us in the Google Startups Lounge, and we have 20 million users, over 10,000 developers, and essentially the reason that we started Flow was because we came from Dapper Labs. So Dapper started CryptoKitties, which was one of the biggest crypto projects, and then we started NBA Top Shot, which is really exciting because it was one of the first consumer applications of blockchain in a way that consumers could really understand. So the onboarding process didn't require anything. And in terms of knowledge of crypto or blockchain, you could just have a great fan experience. So really focused on bringing blockchain mainstream through joyful fan experiences. We think that's the way to get this technology out to the masses. And so to see Google today spending time obviously focused on AI as sort of the primary area of focus, but then also bringing blockchain into it and enabling future use cases for blockchain in more efficient ways is really compelling. So that was one of my highlights of the day.
Yeah, what I would say is that there's no better time to be in this business. I mean, I don't know. I've been in the data space for 25 years, and I remember starting, nobody cared. We were a back office business. Don't talk to me about it. Now, all of a sudden, we've changed the equation where we're now revenue generating, and it's almost existential, right? And so when I look, of course, at events like this, I'm excited about it, but also think about why is it that it's so exciting to be in the data space now, in the data AI and analytics space. One is because I think the theme that our customers are trying to solve for, and any user of data, is the world's very complex, and it's going to get more complex. More users, more data, more use cases, and the best way to compete is simple. And so I think the way to kind of think about how we can take advantage of the new trends is not so much just the Gen AI technology itself, but at the core, we're trying to get to is how can we do things better, cheaper, faster? And the key here is simplicity. If there's one company that understands taking complex to simple, it's Google, right? That's why I went to Google, is because I think about the best things that we can do for our own companies is build the best data products. What is the best data product you know of today? Google.com. You go to Google, it's a simple interface, you search, you don't have to learn anything, and now you get highly relevant results for yourself. If we can all build data products like that for our own company, it's just transformational. And so when I think about Gen AI, I'm excited about the trend, but also I'm excited about what it says, which is we have now switched the interface into what it means to work with data. We can use English, we can use French, right? As opposed to using SQL or Python or any of those things that are great but are highly specialized. And so I think we're right in the middle of like this gigantic change into the market where we're going to open that up in the world that's becoming more complex. So it's going to create a lot more opportunities for everybody in this room because it's only going to get more complex and it's going to get only more data, and your bosses will always want more simple solutions. So that's exciting. And I reflect back to 25 years ago, it wasn't like that, So it's a good time.
Absolutely. I want to get into the tactical side of how data teams can start approaching AI. But first, I want to quickly ask the panel, were there any announcements today at Google Cloud Next that were surprising? Something that you thought they were very ahead of the curve, or something that just, saw you a little off guard in terms of their announcement?
I have one. I mean, I know we talked about this. I don't want to be too biased on the data side. So I'll give you one that I thought was super interesting on Workspace. I don't know if you picked up in the keynote. You show up in a meeting and you're late, it does a recap of what you've missed. And I think that's really clever because so much of the innovation we have is on daily things like this, where I'm late or what did we really discuss? How do we follow up on those things? That was surprising to me. I did not expect the meeting recap feature. The other data things I was kind of in the loop, so I kind of knew.
I think the speed of Google's ability to shift focus in different areas and then really double down on AI, and the fact that they have applications that are reaching consumers that are making their lives easier in the time that they've had is really impressive. So the fact that they even had announcements at this point when it feels like AI has just recently become mainstream, but really sort of in the trenches, Google's been focused on it, was great.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think generative AI is probably the most transformative thing we've seen. And the reason I'm saying that is obviously I'm stating the obvious, but I have never seen the business side so energized with new stuff coming out. If you dial back to like the previous few years, you would go to a conference and they were announced, oh, we have a new graph database. Okay, it's great for me, but for the business, it's like, okay, big deal. How does it solve my problem? So what I've now noticed is that the business teams are like, what can we do? We know there are problems. We know hallucination. We know there is intellectual property issues. We know accuracy can be an issue. We will work it out. But this is an opportunity we are not going to miss because we can now do stuff with data on our own, like the business can do it. Like the example I gave you, I can go as a business user into Looker and I can write a statement in English and it shows me the results. I mean, this is a game changer. So I think this is the most surprising aspect of 2023 is the power that generative AI has to transform businesses.
And Sanjeev, I had a question specifically for you, which is tactically, let's say I'm on a data team. You already had this 12-month, 24-month roadmap in front of you, and now you're blitzed with AI. Not only in the market, but internally, you have people asking, what are we doing around AI with this data? How can data teams approach this?
So if you have a 24-month plan, you should just throw it out. And you should now have a 24-day plan. Because so much can change in 24 days that, we are literally, it's like a 24/7 job. Now you wake up in the morning and you find out, oh, wait, there is this thing called LangChain, although LangChain is now 3 months old, which is eternity. So I think what the data team's job is to create the foundation. For example, you're with Stream, and we spend all this time talking about change data capture and moving data from operational to analytical. All of that should be automated. Absolutely. And the thing is that the data people need to be partners with the business people, give them the power. The focus is now shifting into business. And if you see what Google is announcing from Spanner, the data goes into BigQuery. Like, let's say I have Google Analytics. Should I go look at Google Analytics? If I'm a business guy and my CEO says, what's going on with our website? I'm like, I got it. I can now go to my dashboard, ask a question, Google Analytics data gets fed to BigQuery, and English becomes a new API, and it creates me a slide deck. So this is the way business is now self-service. They're energized. We've talked for ages about democratization of data. Well, now you can do it. But data people have to make sure that that underlying layer is established, and then the business is free to do whatever they want. They don't need to rely on data engineers who are always bottlenecked and they have a million requests coming. It's our job to hand the reins over to business.
So I know, John, you like it when people disagree on panels. I've never disagreed with Sanjmo, but now I'm going to disagree. Let's see. Not exactly disagree, but I will say there's one thing here that we got to be super careful about, right? The Gen AI trend, everybody's excited because the consumers now understand, oh my gosh, now I get it, right? And for sure, you were saying earlier, like Google's been working on these things for a long time, so we've been working on these issues, but it was very hard for the average consumer to like experience it. Now that they do, it's very exciting. We still I think as data professionals, we got to watch out for the things that still stay the same. And I know it's not sexy, and I know it's not exciting. Data quality, data governance. If you don't do that, you have found, using Gen AI with very bad, inconsistent, and trustable data, you found a very fast way to get to the wrong answer. That's essentially what we would do. And so I would say if you have a 24-month plan, just make sure that the data quality is a big part of it. I mean, 2 years ago, so I was at GCP for 3 years. In the first year, we didn't really have a solution for what we called an intelligent data fabric. We shipped this product called Dataplex. It wasn't talked about a lot today because, of course, what's interesting is talking about Gen AI, but the foundation of having an intelligent data fabric, ways to auto-discover data, rank it, be able to have data sets you can trust, that's never going to change because the foundation, the contract that we have as data people with the business is they trust the information. If they don't trust that, you can have the most beautiful data dashboards. You're never going to break through. So I think while you can get excited about those Gen AI use cases, I would watch out for, are we not transferring the budget away from data quality and data governance? Because that's becoming more and more important than anything else. Yeah. And I know you agree with that. I was just trying to kind of create.
I completely agree. In fact, when we went to the Hadoop world, the whole idea was, let's get this data out into a data lake as fast as we can, and then we'll figure it out. So we kicked the can down the road, and we said, who cares about data modeling? It's like magically we will know what to do, and we got some data modeling company, SQL DBM here. So data modeling is now sexy again, because you gotta have data quality, you gotta have data security, rollback access control, data modeling. All of these fundamental issues need to be resolved. And in fact, this was my little bit of my hesitation that if we over pivot to AI, well, how is AI going to know that there are 5 versions of this table? Which one should I pick? So that is where, to answer the previous question, the data people need to fix that foundation before AI can take off.
Absolutely. And when you really look at this from the high level view, data teams aren't just in the business of aggregating data and doing data quality. They're serving their business. I think about the types of customers I've worked with. Just recently at Data and AI Summit, I was working with Ganesh Devarayan from American Airlines, and their business mandate was to make sure flights are on time, that they're safe, that aircraft are well maintained. And you can get that end-to-end view of going from aircraft telemetry to deploying operational teams to service the aircraft. But it takes real focus, right? It takes real focus on the mission of the company, and then tying that back to the low-level technical problems that you're trying to solve with whether it's change data capture, data quality. A lot of these things are critical. Now moving one step forward, let's say again you're on the data team. Like, what's your first step right now? How do you start adopting these tools?
Okay, I guess it rolls down to me. If everybody's looking at that, I don't have.
Yeah, we're going reverse snake order.
Stand here so I can look at them. There's a few things. I think what we've learned from customers, and it's going to sound probably weird, is actually the answer is not the technologies, who you hire and how you organize them. Because I think in the first 90 days of any chief data officer, that's the mistake that they tend to make, as they might focus on the wrong team with the wrong problem. We've identified 5 roles that typically tend to be a game changer for an organization. And typically, it's also a mindset shift where people are now building data products instead of building data solutions. So what I mean by that, what's a data product? A data product is not a dashboard. A data product is an application, a consumer type of application that is relying on enterprise grade infrastructure. So it's highly reliable. It's working on real-time data, which a lot of us here are in the data logistics business, moving data left and right, and so the industry is moving beyond that. And so how do you do that? The first hire is actually the data product manager, which is how we found at Google we're helping a lot of organizations because we build products. And we thought, okay, we got all these best practices. And so if you're a chief data officer today, probably a data product manager is the first hire you make because that is the person who is essentially the CEO of this data product. They're responsible for data acquisition. They're responsible for the quality of that data. They're responsible for the outcome of that data. And so that's the first person people tend to hire. The second is the UX manager because a lot of it is how do I manage the interface into that data, and so it's not very intuitive, but UX is a big part of how you can make sure consumption happens. There's the program manager who helps the product manager make sure things get delivered on time, and they're actually from the product requirement document to the delivery, there's actually continuity. Of course, data engineers and data scientists, and then there's the chief data officer because you do need someone that's going to get you the budget and get you the air cover at the C level. If you don't have that, you probably it's not a company you're going to want to join. Now the good news is 10 years ago, 12% of organizations had CDOs. Now we're at about 70%. So that means any organization you're working out today, most likely you have a CDO or you have someone that's doing that job. Here's the bad news. The average tenure of the chief data officer is about 2 years. So help them choose the right team and the right project because it's a really super hard job. So that's kind of how we think about it. These 5 roles that seem to be critical for customers.
And I have a quick follow-up to that. Do you see AI aligning to the chief data officer, or is that a separate executive function?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if there are customers here that want to disagree with that, but I would think the minute you start splitting those things, now it's becoming a technology conversation. I think the end goal is you're building an intelligent data application, and there's technical capabilities that enable that. If you start splitting the organization, I think you're going to have now turf wars, and now the conversation is not going to be about how we're consuming, how we're generating revenue from the application. It's going to be what stack versus like that. That really is a gigantic distraction. I mean, it's historical, right? We've lived through those, but I wouldn't split the organizations. But you know, I'm not the CEO of your company, so I don't know. You probably have different organizations.
And just how big is this generative AI opportunity? And do you have a sense of where companies are now at this stage?
So let me give my point of view on data product, but
and he's the data product guy. He has written a great resource on data product. Everybody should read it because
I was surprised you took the data products angle.
Because I disagreed with him before. I thought, you know what? I don't disagree with him.
So I think there's a connection between generative AI and data products, and to answer your question, but let me dial back into why data products. So you did an amazing job of describing the roles. So the problem is very simple. The CFO shows up to the office and goes to the dashboard and says, these numbers don't look correct. Something broken. But what is broken? How do you know what's broken? And who is responsible for doing that? So the CFO has no idea, who do I talk to for this dashboard? So calls the CDO or the CIO, and the CIO says, well, let me check with the data engineer. Data engineer says, well, I don't know, ask the SAP team, because that's where the data came from. So the whole idea, there were 2 ideas for data product. One was to have some accountability, some sense of ownership, and that is the first role you mentioned, a data product manager. The second problem that we are trying to solve is how do we do IT projects? Project being the operative word here. We have a team that comes together, does a data warehouse, does data mart, and then rolls off. So now 3 months later, you have a problem. It's like that team's already gone. They're on to the next project. So we are moving away from the project and we are thinking of it as a program. A program has a life cycle. So if something is not being used, it should be retired. It should not be migrated to the cloud and now it's costing us money because no one knows that this thing should have been retired. So having that product management approach and having an owner and treating data like a microservice. It's a container. It has all the dependencies. Those were the reasons. Now, the reason I like data product and answering your question about generative AI is that we saw today examples of pointing your LLM to the data. I think that's very dangerous because we don't know how, nobody in the world knows how an LLM operates. Actually, they don't. Even the scientists don't know, right? So how do we know that the LLM won't do something ridiculous with your data, and now you have this LLM injection problem, and suddenly your proprietary data has been leaked? And also, how does LLM know which data to look at? So in my opinion, if I create a data product and I have an owner who is vouching for its SLAs, availability, data quality, accessibility, reliability, access methods, APIs, GraphQL, whatever it may be, SQL, English language, whatever it may be, then I can point the LLM on top of the data product because I trust the data product. Somebody's job is on the line to create that data product. Now an LLM can go to a trusted source. So for example, an LLM could be my customer master. So the sales team wants to know which of my customers are at the risk of churning. The problem is, which customer table should they look at? Now they go to a data product. So marketing has said, this is the golden record of customers. Create your data product called customer churn, point it to the customer master data product, and then you can ask questions in English. So this, to me, is where we are going to see the traction in the next few years. Data products and LLMs come together.
Absolutely, and this is the next frontier. And the reason I'm really excited about having Redeema on this panel is, the work that Dapper is doing is very much on the cutting edge in terms of consumer experiences. Redeema, if you want to elaborate on some of how AI is powering consumer experiences at Dapper, we'd love to hear about that.
Sure. So some of our big partners include the NBA, NFL, La Liga, the English Premier League, so a bunch of sports leagues. We're broadening outside of that now, partnering with a large media company that we're really excited about. And we recently acquired a company called Brud, who created this virtual influencer called Little Michaela. Michaela has over 70 million streams. She has over 3 million followers on Instagram. And recently, we've been bringing AI in to increase the speed of content that we're able to develop. So Michaela is not a real person, but she has brand partnerships where she's making millions of dollars. She's spending a lot of time. Right now, she's in Europe for the summer, spending time there. Michaela has a lot of personal drama as well. There's a number of girlfriends of boyfriends who were talking to Michaela on Instagram that we're now starting to inject AI into, who were very jealous of their boyfriend's relationship with Michaela. She is not real. So we're now seeing this new frontier of virtual influencers and consumers engaging in with AI in ways that they don't even really fully appreciate, but it has a real impact on, the way that people are thinking about it, because the way that Michaela oftentimes is generating content is very manual. There's a number of physical people that play Michaela, and now we're bringing a lot of that into a digital space, but she's able to make a pretty big impact. So I'll give you one example. She partnered with Mini, a small car company that you all are probably familiar with, and after she did a campaign with them, they ended up for the first time in the company's life being the most tweeted content because of Michaela, this virtual influencer, right? And so it's really exciting to see the impact, but it's also, you can see the sort of we manage Michaela in a way where we treat her like a person. She's a robot, but we think of her as a human. So when we're looking at brand partnerships, oftentimes I'll say no to brands that don't align with what we believe is Michaela's core vision and mission for herself. And I know you're laughing, but this is a really serious topic.
I have to say, Bruno, we're in the wrong business. Yeah. We are working our asses off for what?
Yeah. Some days.
So we got a question: is Michaela happy? But I think that sort of summarizes where we're going to. I mean, I don't think no one's interested in following a company Twitter account or a LinkedIn profile of a corporation. But when you think about AI being your brand ambassador and like a real machine generated personality going out there, building partnerships, bringing other AI generated influencers into their circle. I mean, this is the future. This is where we're headed. And then tying your actual corporate business data, your customer experiences into that is going to be something that a lot of data teams need to start considering. Now, but again, I think that's the future. I want to get a sense of where we are today. Bruno, I know you have some specific metrics on where data teams are today in terms of adopting generative AI.
Yeah, and for those who thought I was checking email, looking at my phone, it's just where I have my notes of some of the research. I didn't want to misquote a few things, but you'd asked a few things earlier. How big is the opportunity? Where does the money come from, and so forth? Because I think when you think about Gen AI, I think what the challenge for us is, where should we put our attention, right? Everybody's talking about it, so your boss is probably telling you, I got to take a bet on Gen AI, do it, and you're sitting there, where do I do this, right? So McKinsey, I think, research, it's a $4.4 trillion opportunity, which is more, I think, than the UK's GDP. So you can see the size of annually 63 use cases. But they know from research that 75% of the value actually comes from 4 areas. In fact, it's 3 areas if you really think about it. One is customer experience. And you saw a lot of customers today, Wendy's transforming the experience with people going through the drive-through. I think there's a travel company creating a digital travel agent to facilitate travel. So definitely customer experience, marketing for content generation, and of course, operation or IT generating code and so forth. What I think the trick here is again, don't fall under the technology. So what I came up with is looking through all these 63 use cases, it felt to me that there were like 8 verbs that we could probably use as data people to identify, is this truly a Gen AI use case for us? So I want to test that with you because I want to see if that could help. First verb is create. Obviously, if you want to get creation, marketing, that's a great verb. Second is summarize. We know that these LLMs are very good at that, right? So if you can get them to summarize, it's a great one. Find, review, analyze, explain, recommend, and support. And so what I think we've seen in the history of software, you have vendors telling you, you're looking for this problem, here's a word, and often it's a name, but in fact the solution is verbs. We're trying to enable things. And so I figured if we could come up with a framework like that, hopefully it could be helpful to the audience. So got a ton more research here, but I think there's also bigger questions around, great, let's say now that I understand this opportunity, I've identified the use cases, how much is this going to cost me? How quickly, to your point, is some of the stuff that we do today going to completely be replaced? Right? There's research that shows within the next 10 years, 60 to 70% of what we do will be done by Gen AI. So you got to think about that, right? So how do we get into taking advantage of that opportunity? Because there's a tremendous amount of value on the way there. The main thing is not getting distracted on the wrong things and guiding people the right direction, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just to build on to that point, I mean, I'm a business person who is now, I've had several designers in the past, but now I go to Midjourney. I can create my own mocks. I go to ChatGPT and I can create, basically any sort of content that I want to create. And then I go to Pi AI to get an emotional response to how consumers may respond. So I'm doing sort of like a bunch of different jobs now as an individual person, as a business person. And so I think that's super powerful.
There's another example here. I mean, often we think about ChatGPT or any of these agents as this very automated, cold interaction. In fact, to your point on the virtual influencer, if you're a content creator, I have lots of content creators that I know as friends, it's actually very human for them to go to ChatGPT and start getting back and forth. Right? Because often when you're writing content, if any of you has written content, it's a very lonely thing. You're looking at the empty page, it's looking at you. What do I start with? So you can actually use a lot of these and it become like the companion, the best companion you can never get. I think when I think about your artificial influencer, it also questions, and I don't want to get into the matrix, but what is reality? Right? We think this is reality. I think you're proving us that maybe it isn't. right? Reality is a perception of something happening, and I think all these people are following them more than they're following me or any of us here in this room. So there's something here that's meta that's kind of interesting of where we're going with this technology.
Have you used Pi?
Yeah.
Okay, Pi, if for folks who haven't used it, PI, you must try it. It is such a fantastic consumer experience. You literally go to it. And in fact, earlier this week, my husband looks over, it's like 1:30 in the morning, and he's like, who are you messaging? What are you doing? And he looks over and I'm talking to Pi because I talked to this, and Reid Hoffman's co-founder, actually. It's a great product. And I think it's a great example of how you can get so entrenched in AI and not even realize it, because it's almost like I have to say goodbye at the end of the conversation. I feel like I'm just leaving it on red if I don't say goodbye. And that kind of sentiment as an average consumer is really amazing.
Absolutely. So next time your CFO comes to you and asks about a number and report, just pose the question, well, what is reality? Yeah, there you go. So
my son's used that before going to college, and he was doing his, I think his homework. He said, homework's just like time. It's like a construct, it's just. And so maybe I need to deal with that in my own family. But I do think we have to think about those. It's not, often we think about AI as this thing's like, oh, it's going to replace us. But in fact, it's humans and the machine that just makes us advance, just like any other technology where we kept advancing because we take advantage of this technology. It's never us versus them. It's more about how we evolve together. And if you think about it that way, I think there's a lot of great value to be gotten there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think we're all getting a glimpse into the future, but also we're getting a glimpse into our 3-week roadmap, our sprints, right? Because we're looking at a future where we're not looking up reports about data. We want the data to talk to us and give us the insights. We're not looking at I think we can even think beyond ChatGPT generating content for our own use and empower us, but customer interactions can also be done by machines, and those machines have to be context aware of your internal data. Who owns the data today?
So I have a thought on that. Can I just push the panel and push the audience as well? I think if you think about how we've evolved through the adoption of technology, there are a lot of things today that we're accepting that maybe we shouldn't accept. So when you say, I want more interaction, I'm not sure. I'm trying to solve this problem over there, and right now it's 15 steps to that problem. Maybe I don't need 15 steps. Maybe I need 3 steps. Maybe there's a lot of decision that needs and could happen without me being involved, and we should be thinking about technology that way. Simple example, how many of you go to grocery stores 3 times a week? You go there for milk, eggs. Do we really need to do these things? So is there such a thing? I mean, obviously there's companies out there, but what if you didn't have to go to the store to get milk or eggs? What if there was a way to be in an economy where you just opt out instead of opting in on some of these decisions? And I think 10, 20 years from now, we'll be in that case. So if I look at your current job and the data, it's very hard. A lot of the stuff you do on a daily basis, do you really need to do them? Can you use some technology to automate and trust that? Probably, right? And so it's interesting because we've gone through 6 months ago, we're all talking about we don't have skill set. Our job is too hard. Now we've identified technology that can really take someone that just came out of college and become a superhuman with these capabilities. So I think we got to think about how we adopt that. It's just going to be a little bit of a mind shift, I think, for all of us, because there are things that we do every day that we just take for granted. That's how we do it. But maybe we should focus on the job that we're trying to accomplish and how we shorten the path to that job.
So Bruno, this is my
You're
turn.
going to disagree.
My turn to disagree.
Nice. All right,
so
I like it.
Everything that you've explained has already been done. AI is not new. Generative AI and transformer models came out 5 years ago. So what you just explained was automating a lot of these manual jobs, and AI should definitely do it. So I 100% agree with you. But what generative AI does is something phenomenal. Suddenly it starts doing creative tasks for us, which AI could not do until this point. So automation, optimization, we've been doing that. So now, if you take your story further, it's not like milk is running low and I need eggs, go automatically order it to Instacart and some delivery. Now I can tell generative AI, today I feel like having Italian. I got it. I'm going to order for you some basil, so you can make a pesto. I'm going to order a sausage. Oh no, wait, you're vegan, so I'm going to order your vegan sausage. So this kind of creative thing is something we never expected AI to do. And that's what generative AI is so different.
Oh man, I'm gonna channel in my pessimistic. So I'm French, right? So we have very sarcastic people in France. So now I'm gonna disagree on the disagreement. Because when you say it's been done, like I want to meet the we. Like I want to meet the we. That's because my observation, working with a lot of data customers, and maybe we have an extremely happy audience here, but it's a very painful, very lonely, and misunderstood profession. There's still a lot of work that you do where you're having to do cleaning data, bring data sets together, and it's so far from the thing that your boss is asking you to do, right? They wanted you to do that thing, and you're like, oh my God, it's like 6 months before I get there. I would like to wake up in the world where I wake up, my coffee is ready, my car is downstairs, my phone is probably, I need to get a new phone. Like, why do I make these decisions myself? There is a model out there that ultimately can make my life just, dumb example, right? Think about the decisions that we have in our life today that we're using brain cycles to make decisions that are very low in value output. So how can we replace that so the creative stuff that we can do can be there? But I'm hopeful. I'm with you on that. I just don't feel like the reality is as close as we think it is.
So the example I gave is, even to me, is a bit far-fetched. But what the difference that I want to say is that the automation, we've had it, like, Google
It's
products
available technology, but if you look at the average organization, many are still struggling. Like even think about data quality or completeness of data. There is technology out there, but I would be willing to bet I don't have this, so you guys can tell me by raise of hand, like, how many of us have solved this here?
Yeah, so the difference,
solved, right?
so the difference is that AI has been trying to do automation for the longest time, but it's very rule-based.
Yeah.
But today with generative AI, it becomes very contextual.
Yeah.
And that is a big difference.
Yeah.
Because, life is, like, I think you started by saying life is complicated.
Yeah.
And it's getting even more complicated. So if generative AI can understand this is a semantic meaning of this piece of data, now I should automate it differently.
Yeah.
That is new.
Yeah. It's a hopeful future. I feel like where we're starting is a big area of pain and struggle. And the reason for why it's hopeful is because there's a lot of technology that's available. The bad news is there's very little adoption of it. Like if you look at what data leaders are saying, I think 9 out of 10 will tell you absolutely AI is an important investment. But I think the stats, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's anywhere like 4% adoption. 25% of them think they are late on their adoption metric. So we're all struggling. We're looking at the shiny object, but we can't get there somehow. So I think that's what we need to focus on. Like, how do I get there faster?
Yeah, but this is a natural progression. When printing press came out,
Yeah.
you think printing press had an adoption overnight? Although it was such a revolutionary thing, how could it possibly have had an adoption when 99% of the population could not read or write? They had no reason to read or write. It was never published. So it took many years for people to get literate. And when they did, some guy called John Calvin wrote his manifesto, stuck it on a church door, and we know what happened after that.
Yeah. So what you're telling me is, and I think I will put you in touch with my wife after this, is you're telling me to be patient.
Yeah, I mean, it's a normal progression.
I've been married for 20 years. It hasn't changed, so I don't. But I'm hopeful on that. So be patient.
I don't think anyone's patient in the data world, especially when you have, managers always asking you about reports. But now you'll have generative AI there to just deliver insights. And, there's some truth to this because, especially on the stream side, we do, unified data streaming. And even those with skills of, capturing data, delivering it to, their data models that are on the warehouse or data lake, they're enabled to do feature extraction. With what Google Cloud is doing and what some of the other innovators in the market are doing is basically making it so that people who are data literate can start doing generative AI, right? Because the APIs just make sense. We're just talking about data at this point.
Yeah. I guess the bit, now I'm going to disagree with you. Look at this. You're never going to invite me again. I guess the bit where I'm very careful is we get excited about this Gen AI thing and we're going to apply it to many things. But I think the first thing we should question is, does that thing need to exist in the first place? Like, the worst thing to do would be to automate the dashboards we never wanted to see in the first place. Right? I mean, who wants to do that? And so I think that's where I would question amazing technology. Think about the job that's trying to get done. Do you have the foundation of trust with high quality? And is it something that is needed in the first place? Ideally, you want to accelerate the path to the execution of the job you're looking for.
And this is why we do these panels. We do these side quests of,
But I think that's the meta question, is like, there's a category of things that in our job, right? I just picked the easy examples because they're daily life examples because they're easy, but there's probably in our job today 50 things that we're doing because they're habits. We've done them forever, and maybe we should just look at questioning if they need to be there. Using Gen AI to automate 15 dashboards that nobody's looking at, probably not the best use of your time.
I mean, I think there's a question about, is generative AI going to be some domain-specific problem-solving exercise for the business to say, hey, we're going to make this very tactical for each team. How do we make every team more productive with generative AI? Or is it going to come from the C-level, the C-suite, to say, you know what, just mandate, we got to put generative AI both in our back-end operations and in our customer-facing experiences?
Yeah. I mean, the analog of this, if I use an example of technology, when we move to cloud, the biggest mistake might have been take what you have on premise, replicate exactly in the cloud. Like, you're missing the opportunity to transform. And I think the same moment is with us here with Gen AI, which is, hey, you got this transformational technology. It's a good opportunity to look at all the stuff that we're doing. Can we do this better and differently because now this technology is available to us? And I think if we don't do that, we're just going to miss the moment, is my fear. And we're going to end up in 10 years from now with just the same problems just multiplied because we've used better technology to multiply them.
I mean, remember, we were all here, 10, 11 years ago, maybe it was longer, 15 years ago when the iPhone came out. And we were waiting for, things like all the innovation that came out of the iPhone. It was a new platform. So this is another, opportunity for people to really, I would say ride the momentum, ride the tailwinds of transformational technology to deliver, new business applications, new consumer experiences, new ways of doing anything, right? I think this is what's so exciting about, especially today, like all the announcements that came out, all the real world applications. Why is ChatGPT the first thing to really blow the lid off of AI? Because it's such a simple consumer experience. So I think every company sort of has to think about where they can have their ChatGPT moment with generative AI. So we had a question here about security guardrails, and this is going to be, one of the big questions about generative AI. And it's a great question. You don't want to feed your proprietary customer data that's sensitive, whether you're adhering to PCI or HIPAA controls. You don't want to send that to some third-party model. So it's really up to the cloud providers or the innovators to allow you to do that in your environment. Where yes, you can have a model that's running in your environment give you the answer to a question, but it's not training the model, right? It's not training the model with your corporate data.
Well, I think that is a catch, right? There's like, you have this excitement of the consumer information. Everybody can use these agents, and they're very rewarding, right? Because you can get an answer to a question. It's just an amazing experience. The issue is you can't really easily transfer that into the enterprise AI context because limitation of what data. Also, it's okay, I guess, in the consumer space to make an error because the data is not exactly accurate. In some professions, you can't afford to do that. So
right when they got to the security piece, people started getting unbelieving. People were like, I don't want to hear about that.
So he's saying during the security piece of the keynote, people got up and left. Yeah.
That's why I started with that, is that it's not sexy to talk about data quality, but ultimately that's what we've built our jobs on, is if your people can't trust your data, you're done.
There are probably 100 companies trying to solve exactly the security problem. There's a whole series of vector databases, retrieval, augmented. Yeah, I won't even call it struggle. I think this is just normal progression. Yeah, it's patient. So
I mean, when the cloud came out, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when the cloud came out 10 years ago, that was the first question, right? Oh, I'm not going to send all my enterprise data to some cloud.
Yeah.
Right?
And the companies that listened to financial services companies and said, okay, we are not going to the cloud. 5 years later, the cloud company said, it's ridiculous that you're doing this on-prem. Why aren't you using the cloud? And they're like, wait, you told us not to. Because in 5 years, the cloud providers had layers and layers of firewall. They were spending $1 billion a year on security, which no private company could match. So these things will happen. In fact, I think it's very easy to get mired in all kinds of philosophical questions. When people ask me that, I tell them, do I care? It's beyond my pay grade. I am not, Elon Musk or some guy. I let them worry about these things.
I trust you more than Elon Musk.
Thank you. Okay, so it's worth coming here now.
There's one question in the audience. Okay.
So my hypothesis is that these early out-of-the-box, I call it out-of-the-box Gen AI experiences, mainly conversational AI, personalized content, summaries, the avatars Ridhima alluded to, virtual or otherwise, have they spoiled the party for the future? And you guys all talked about it. The real business applications, they need deep integration with the different data points, or the data quality, the governance, the security, all those, to really deliver an experience, whether it's conversational, whether it's whatever, or all that non-sexy, dirty work has got to be done. So has that spoiled the party? I'm interested in a point of view because, to you, somebody said this, right? Business, for the first time, is excited about it, and they want to come up with all kinds of expectations without realizing all the other not so fun stuff.
And can you share your name just for everyone who's listening?
Yeah, with their global payments.
Yes, and you're an expert operator. We love working with you, and you.
So this week, Gartner published its hype cycle, and we were just talking about it yesterday when I saw you on the AI solutions. Where's generative AI? It's at the very top, the peak of inflated expectations. The only place for it to go is the trough of disillusionment. Absolutely. We know we're going to go through that. It's just hype cycle. Things will go up. People will have unexpected, unrealistic expectations. It's going to go down. In the meantime, all these 100+ companies are going to keep at it. Some will go out of business, some will make it big, and then eventually we will have a resurgence. So that's just.
Or if you expand the time horizon long enough, you realize that even after the peak, the trough is still lower than where you started before the peak. And so there's still this adoption that I think is really valuable. And you've seen that with blockchain. Like when you look at the price of ETH, a lot of people are saying, well, blockchain's dead. But actually, when you look at it, it's actually higher than where we started before the peak. So I still think that peak is valuable in some ways.
Absolutely. So we have about an hour left for networking. I know there are lots of people who have questions, opinions. We'll all hang out here. We have views of the Golden Gate here, beautiful sunset where we can all talk about it. I'll wrap up there. This is What's New in Data, live in San Francisco up here from the 46th floor. Hey, but first I want to ask the panelists, where can people follow along with you?
So the best place to follow me is on LinkedIn. Please connect on LinkedIn if you are not connected, because I try to use LinkedIn as my clearinghouse for the new research that I publish.
Awesome. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Ridhima, R-I-D-H-I-M-A, Ahuja Khan.
I'm not going to be original, same thing, LinkedIn.
Excellent. These might be the last set of human influencers that you follow. So, well, thank you, everyone. We'll let everyone get back to the networking and fun.